Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Wednesday. It's October 28th, 2020, and New World News. Welcome in, guys. I'm Casey. If you're new to this channel, thank you for being here. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as we get closer to Election Day. We're just Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 6 days and counting out from Election Day 2020. And today's big story, of course, is a follow-up to the Hunter Biden story from the New York Post that I did about a week or so ago. The New York Post put this story on Twitter. They tweeted it out. They posted their stuff, and they were blocked. The story and the links were blocked. And the CEO, owner, founder of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, was called in front of a virtual congressional hearing meeting today with Senator Ted Cruz and other members of Congress, and or members of the Senate, excuse me, and they questioned why the New York Post was censored when post from weeks ago showing Donald Trump's taxes, which is a federal crime to share somebody's tax returns without their knowledge or permission, were allowed to go through Twitter, yet the New York Post showing this story about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden's business dealings with Ukraine and China were blocked. And so Twitter's CEO, Jack Dorsey, I'm going to play a part of the interview for you guys in a minute. Jack Dorsey said that Twitter doesn't allow hacked materials to be posted. The problem is this wasn't hacked materials. This material came off of a laptop that was dropped at a repair shop by Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. He forgot to pick it up, which any repair shop that I've been to, if I don't pick up my merchandise or pay to get it repaired, the shop owns it. They take over all rights of what it was there, and then it was turned over. So these were not hacked materials. This was legitimate, real material. And the bottom line comes down to this. Look, I'm not someone to beat around the bush. Jack Dorsey is a huge Democratic supporter. He's a Trump hater. He doesn't hide that fact. And he literally cannot just come out and be a man and say, I don't like Trump. I'm going to censor his stuff. And I don't care if you don't like it. It's my platform, my sandbox, kick rocks, move it along. I want Biden to be elected. I hate Trump. And so Biden stuff, suppressed. Trump stuff, boom, front and center so that everyone can see the bad stuff. And be a man. Just come out and say it. You don't like Trump, you're censoring the stuff, but he can't. And let me tell you why these people like Zuckerberg and Dorsey and whatnot cannot just come out and say that. There's two reasons. One is money and advertisers and the legitimacy of the platforms that these guys are CEOs of and run. If they just came out and said, hey guys, I'm Mark Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, and I hate Trump, and anybody that supports Trump, I'm going to censor, man, imagine what that would do. Instead, they just sit in the sidelines, they collect their billions, and they say, we have terms of service, and we have policies. I'm gonna show you the video in a second. It's bonkers what Jack Dorsey got away with. And good on Senator Ted Cruz for calling him out and saying, who the hell elected you to make these decisions? You know, the only problem I have is when somebody owns a website or a platform, they do get to decide whether you're on there or not. The problem is they can't violate federal law for censorship. And that's the second reason why they don't just come out and be a man and say what they're doing. We all know what they're doing, but they're not going to admit it because they could be crossing federal lines and censorship laws and rules and monopolies and get shut down, and they don't want that. So that's basically where it's at, is we're 6 days out. Trump trying to show, you know, Joe Biden and Hunter Biden are absolutely doing business with the Ukrainians and the Chinese. They absolutely had questionable business deals while Joe Biden was a sitting U.S. vice president. These dates are from, I believe, 2013, 2014, maybe as recent as 2015. So definitely while he was vice president under Obama. And it's just, it's so glaringly, blatantly obvious that when Biden does something bad, it's swept under the rug. And when Trump does something bad, look, I'll be the first to admit, when Trump says or does things that are ridiculous, it's just his nature. But that is front and center. But Biden stuff is like, sweep it under the rug, sweep it under the rug. Because these people that own these social media platforms and CEO and run them are openly Democratic supporters. They've made no two ways about it. And, you know, without saying, hey, I hate Trump, everything they do spells it out. So it's unfortunate, you know, and people call them out on it, but there's nothing you can do. These are the richest, most powerful people in the world. Twitter, Facebook, Google also involved in this. All these platforms are bigger, badder, richer and more powerful than pretty much anyone else. So what are you going to do, right? And that's where we're at. So let's take a look at a couple clips from the congressional hearing this morning. Senator Ted Cruz from Texas and Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, on why he was censoring the Hunter Biden story and not Donald Trump information from several weeks ago, including the New York Post story that I posted about a week ago. So let's check it out, roll that footage, and then after we're done, please leave your comments down in the comments section. Make sure you subscribe to this channel as we lead up to Election Day. I'll be putting out several videos, including Election Night. I can't wait for that. It should be interesting. We'll cover that when it happens, and I appreciate you guys watching the channel. I'll look for your comments, and without further ado, here's the video.
And the greatest threat we have to free and fair elections. Yesterday, I spent a considerable amount of time speaking with both Mr. Zuckerberg and Mr. Pichai. I have concerns about the behavior of both of their companies. I would note that Facebook is at the minimum at least trying to make some efforts in the direction of defending free speech. I appreciate their doing so. Google, I agree with the concerns that Senator Klobuchar raised. I think Google has more power than any company on the face of the planet. And the antitrust concerns are real. The impact of Google is profound. And I expect we will have continued and ongoing discussions about Google's abuse of that power and its willingness to manipulate search outcomes to influence and change election results. But today, I want to focus my questioning on Mr. Dorsey and on Twitter. Because of the three players before us, I think Twitter's conduct has by far been the most egregious. Mr. Dorsey, does Twitter have the ability to influence elections?
No.
You don't believe Twitter has any ability to influence elections?
No, we are one part of a broad spectrum of communication channels that people have.
So you're testifying to this committee right now that Twitter, when it silences people, when it censors people, when it blocks political speech, that has no impact on elections?
People have choice of other communication channels with which.
Not if they don't hear information. If you don't think you have the power to influence elections, why do you block anything?
Well, we have policies that are focused on making sure that more voices on the platform are possible. We see a lot of abuse and harassment, which ends up silencing people and having them leave from the platform.
All right, Mr. Dorsey, I find your opening questions, your opening answers absurd on their face. But let's talk about the last 2 weeks in particular. As you know, I have long been concerned about Twitter's pattern of censoring and silencing individual Americans with whom Twitter disagrees. But 2 weeks ago, Twitter, and to a lesser extent, Facebook, crossed a threshold that is fundamental in our country. 2 weeks ago, Twitter made the unilateral decision to censor the New York Post in a series of 2 blockbuster articles, both alleging evidence of corruption against Joe Biden, the first concerning Ukraine, the second concerning communist China. And Twitter made the decision, number one, to prevent users, any user, from sharing those stories. And number two, you went even further and blocked the New York Post from sharing on Twitter its own reporting. Why did Twitter make the decision to censor the New York Post?
We had a hack materials policy that we.
When was that policy adopted?
In 2018, I believe.
In 2018, go ahead. What was the policy?
So the policy is around limiting the spread of materials that are hacked. We didn't want Twitter to be a distributor for hack materials. We found that the New York Post, because it showed the direct materials, screenshots of the direct materials, and it was unclear how those were attained, that it fell under this policy. Now,
so in your view, if it's unclear the source of a document, and in this instance, the New York Post documented what it said the source was, which it said it was a laptop owned by Hunter Biden that had been turned into a repair store. So they weren't hiding what they claimed to be the source. Is it your position that Twitter, when you can't tell the source, blocks press stories?
No, not at all. Our team made a fast decision The enforcement action, however, of blocking URLs, both in tweets and in DM, in direct messages, we believe was incorrect. And we changed it within
Today,
24
right
hours.
now, the New York Post is still blocked from tweeting 2 weeks later.
Yes, they have to log into their account, which they can do at this minute, delete the original tweet, which fell under our original enforcement actions, and they can tweet the exact same material in the exact same article, and it would go through.
So, Mr. Dorsey, your ability is you have the power to force a media outlet. Let's be clear. The New York Post isn't just some random guy tweeting. The New York Post has the 4th highest circulation of any newspaper in America. The New York Post is over 200 years old. The New York Post was founded by Alexander Hamilton. And your position is that you can sit in Silicon Valley and demand of the media that you can tell them what stories they can publish, and you can tell the American people what reporting they can hear. Is that right?
No, this was a, every person, every account, every organization that signs up to Twitter agrees to a terms of service. Terms of service is
so
published.
Media outlets must genuflect and obey your dictates if they wish to be able to communicate with readers. Is that right?
No, not at all. We recognized an error in this policy, and specifically the enforcement.
You're still blocking their
changed
posts. You're still blocking their posts. Right now, today, you're blocking their posts.
We're not blocking the post. Anyone can tweet.
Can
these
the
articles.
New York Post post on their Twitter account?
If they go into their account.
No is your answer to that. No, unless they genuflect and agree with your dictates. Let me ask you something. You claimed it was because of a hacked materials policy. I find that facially highly dubious and clearly employed in a deeply partial way. Did Twitter block the distribution of the New York Times' story a few weeks ago that purported to be based on copies of President Trump's tax returns?
We didn't find that a violation of our terms of service and this policy in particular, because it was reporting about the material. It wasn't distributing the material.
Okay, well, that's actually not true. They posted what they purported to be original source materials, and federal law, federal statute makes it a crime, a federal felony, to distribute someone's tax returns against their knowledge. So that material was based on something that was distributed in violation of federal law, and yet Twitter gleefully allowed people to circulate that. But when the article was critical of Joe Biden, Twitter engaged in rampant censorship and silencing.
And again, we recognized errors in that policy. We changed it within 24 hours. This is.
But you're still blocking the New York Post. You haven't changed it.
We have changed it. They can log into their account, delete the original tweet. That was
You forced a Politico reporter to take down his post about the New York Post as well. Is that correct?
Within that 24-hour period, yes. But we, as the policy has changed, anyone can tweet.
So Twitter takes the view you can censor the New York Post, you can censor Politico, presumably you can censor the New York Times or any other media outlet. Mr. Dorsey, who the hell elected you and put you in charge of what the media are allowed to report and what the American people are allowed to hear? And why do you persist in behaving as a Democratic super PAC, silencing views to the contrary of your political beliefs?